Welcome back to the Stories of Northern Life podcast, brought to you by the Sault Ste. Marie Museum. I'm your host, Nicole, and today I have an interesting few articles to read to you from the Sault Daily Star. So as I said, I have a few interesting articles to read from you from the Sault Daily Star, the first of which was published February 8th, 1926. And now this is about the disappearance of the two Cowan children. So here's the title. Two sons of Alex Cowan, Herman 14 and William 12, disappeared on Saturday, last seen playing in yard at 18 Grace Street at noon. So here's the article. The two small sons of Mr. and Mrs. Alex Cowan, 18 Grace Street, mysteriously disappeared from the yard at the rear of their home shortly after noon on Saturday. They have not as of yet been found, although the police and off-shift firemen have been searching for them since Saturday afternoon. The two boys are Herman, aged 14, and William, aged 12. They were last seen by Mrs. Cowan about 12:45 o'clock Saturday afternoon, cutting poles with a bucksaw in the yard. The dog with which they were playing is still at the residence. When last seen, Herman, the older boy, was wearing a gray peaked cap, a heavy dark brown Mackinaw coat, a heavy woolen sweater with bright red neck and shoulders and brown body, dark pants, black woolen stockings, and a pair of 8-inch leather top rubbers. William was wearing a homemade red toque, a pair of black pants, black woolen stockings, 8-inch leather top rubbers, and a Mackinaw of reddish shade. According to Mr. Cowan, who is a fireman at the Central Fire Hall, both boys were in the house for dinner. They were playing at the table and appeared to be in very happy mood. Neither Mr. nor Mrs. Cowan have the slightest idea as to where the boys have gone. They are inclined to think that Herman and William might have gone down the line and would be glad to hear from anyone who sees the two boys that would answer to the description they give. Mr. and Mrs. Cowan and the two boys have lived in the Sault for the past 3 years. Previous to coming here, they lived with Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Pace at Duns Valley, about 22 miles back of Bruce Mines, for 5 years. The fact that the boys were acquainted in that section and at Sylvan Valley and Bruce Mines leads the parents to believe that if they struck out for any place in particular, it would be to Duns Valley. Mr. Cowan says he is well acquainted in the various places down the line. He drove to Echo Bay with horse and cutter and made fruitless inquiries there over the weekend. He has also got in touch with the various people in Sylvan Valley and Duns Valley, but has got no light as of yet that would lead him to the destination of his two sons. Yesterday, Mr. Cowan walked along the riverfront on the Canadian side of the St. Mary's River from the ACR coal dock to the ship canal, but all the tracks he saw on the ice led back to the shore. There is a possibility he thinks that the boys may have walked across the river to the Michigan Sault, and police across the river have been notified. Herman and William were attending the Campbell School, and like other lads their age, they have often boyishly told their parents that they didn't want to go to school anymore, and they said recently they weren't going back to school after the next summer holidays. Mr. Cowan declared that they never thought of such a thing happening. The first clue regarding what is believed to be a premeditated departure on the part of Herman and William Cowan, the two small sons of Mr. and Mrs. Alex Cowan, 18 Grace Street, who disappeared from their home early Saturday afternoon, was brought to light quite unexpectedly this afternoon when Lieutenant William O'Rourke of the Sault Fire Department, one of the searchers, was informed by Mr. W.R. Stevens, 180 Elgin Street, that his small daughter, while looking out the window at the rear of his residence, saw the two lads emerge from the lane between Grace and Wellington Street at 3 o'clock Saturday afternoon, the older one carrying a small pack sack over his shoulder. It is now firmly believed that the two were bound for the home of Mr. Thomas Pace, uncle of Mr. Cowan in Duns Valley, where they lived for 5 years before coming to the Sioux 3 years ago. It was learned from playmates of Herman and William attending the Campbell School that the two had been talking for some time about a contemplated trip down the line. In view of what has been learned today, it is believed they struck out for the Trunk Road and are on their way to Duns Valley via the Sylvan Valley Road. The first indication Mrs. Cowan got that the two boys were gone was around 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon. She wanted them to go on an errand for her, and when she went out to the yard to call them, they were gone. She telephoned her husband at the Central Fire Hall and asked him to see if they were playing on the fireman's truck. They were not there. When the boys did not show up for supper, the search for them commenced. All the rinks in the city were looked over and the telephone was kept busy while the anxious parents put through calls to every place where they thought the boys might be. A report was received by Mr. Cowan that a man was seen walking down the Trunk Road near Cobos with two small boys, but on driving to Echo Bay and making inquiries along the line, Mr. Cowan was not able to confirm the report. All milkmen and farmers have been asked to keep a sharp lookout for the boys. Herman is a quiet, deep-minded boy and quite sturdy, and it is thought he enticed his younger brother William to make the trip east with him. William is a small lad and is quite delicate, and much anxiety is felt for him. Just before going to press, the Star was notified by Lieutenant O'Rourke that he was on his way to the Sioux, Michigan to investigate a report that the two boys had walked the International Bridge last night and were now across the river. Information to this effect was received late today by telephone from Fireman Gordon Hunter, who is searching in Sioux, Michigan. Mr. Hunter said he thought he had traced them to the Busy Bee restaurant, where it was reported that two boys matching their description had had lunch last night, and he was informed that two boys answering the description had eaten breakfast in the Savoy's Cafe this morning. So there is the article about the two missing boys. And so now when it did say they walked across the International Bridge, they are referring to the International Train Bridge, as the international bridge that we know of, the car bridge, wasn't going to be built for about another 40 years. Let's get on with the story. So the next article we have is Alex Cowan's sons found last night on Cora Farm, bound for lumber camp to get work, said they were orphans. So here's your story. After being missing from their home since early Saturday afternoon, the two small sons of Mr. and Mrs. Alex Cowan, 18 Gray Street, Herman, aged 14 years, and William, aged 12 years, were found last night at the farmhouse of Mr. and Mrs. J.E. Hill, near the Greenwood Cemetery, where it was learned they had taken refuge between 7 and 8 o'clock Saturday night en route to the woods. Contrary to the expectations of the police, the off-shift firemen, and others who joined the search, when it was first reported the lads had disappeared, Herman and William had walked in a northerly direction, while the efforts of the searchers were confined more to the east and south. According to the story told by the boys, they had set out early Saturday afternoon from the ACR station at the foot of Bruce Street and had walked the tracks westerly. Toward evening, they had become tired and headed for the lighted farmhouse, which proved to be Mr. Hill's. They told their parents that it was just after dinner time on Saturday that they had made up their minds to strike out for the lumber camp and get a job. They had 55 cents in their pocket, and with this they bought 2 loaves of bread and other edibles. They had packed their good pants in their knapsacks before leaving the house. The smaller boy appeared to have been crying when the two entered the house, Mr. J.E. Hill told the Star this morning. They arrived here between 7 and 8 o'clock Saturday night. They asked me how far it was to the nearest lumber camp, and suspecting their plans, I told them there was no camp around. Mrs. Hill said the boys had given their names as Robinson and said they had come from Dunn's Valley and had never been in the Sioux before. They also told Mrs. Hill they were orphans and had quarreled with the uncle, Mr. Thomas Pace, with whom they had been living at Dunn's Valley, and he threatened to put them in the children's home. So they thought they would strike out and try to make a living for themselves. They added that they had walked into the Blind River and had taken the train to the Sioux, and not having any more money, they were walking the rest of the way to the lumber camp. They were nice little fellows, and I thought I would keep them here until I found out more, said Mrs. Hill. She notified the people living nearby, including Mrs. J. Hayes, who in turn telephoned to Mrs. G.K. DeWolf, and it was through the latter that Mrs. Cowan was notified. Mr. Cowan immediately set out with a horse and cutter for Mr. Hill's farmhouse and brought the boys home. Mr. Cowan desires to thank all the people who aided him in searching for his two sons. And this was published the following day in the Sault Daily Star, February 9th, 1926. So there is the adventure of the two Cowan boys who tried to get out of going to school by making off and finding work in the lumber camps. I hope you have enjoyed today's episode, and as always, thanks for listening. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, you might like our blog too. Head over to our website, Sioux Museum, that's SAULT museum.ca, and look under Discover. You will find our blog, Museum Musings. We share a short synopsis of influential people, historic places, and impactful events in our history. Pictures are always included, and you will be sure to learn a little something new with each post.